This is Stacy Bishop, and this is my presentation on online communities of learning. I've titled it The Ice Beneath Our Sweep. A little bit about the sport of curling. First of all, it's my favorite sport. I curl competitively and socially, and I think it's a really amazing sport. So a little background before I start talking about the online community of learning. It is an Olympic sport. It's been in the Olympics since the 80s, and in the last Winter Olympics, the U.S. men brought home the gold. It's good for all ages. It starts at around 5 years old, and a couple years ago we had a curler at our club that was 94 and still going strong. Super fun. It's how it fills most of my nights and weekends. But it requires extremely highly groomed ice. It's not like hockey. Curling ice has no Zambonis, so what you think of as hockey ice, it's treated incredibly different. And first, it's not flat, it's pebbled, which means it has little droplets of water all over it, unlike hockey ice. If it were prepared for it by a Zamboni, it would definitely not groom correctly. Curling ice is carefully built each season and prepared before each game. It's the fifth player in the game. Half of the game is learning how to read the ice and adapt to changing ice conditions. Curling ice is prepared by a curling ice technician, or an ice tech for short. This specialty group of people work very hard to build and groom the most perfect ice. Most are curlers as well, or former curlers. Some curling clubs have paid ice techs and some are volunteer. I would say that most are volunteer. There's no such thing as a collegiate program for ice techs, and we'll go into that in a minute. But it's something that people do as a labor of love. Since this is kind of a specialized thing and a complete labor of love, ice techs, they're few and far between. Each club has only one or two main ice techs, and this is a very specialized skill. This is a picture from Superior Curling Club of them pebbling the ice, which means they're adding tiny droplets to it. Because this is such a niche thing, they have a lot of questions that not a lot of people know the answers to, so they turn to their online community of learning, or the Ice Techs Facebook group. You can see here there's a couple of questions. Somebody had a question about pebbling, and there's already 10 comments. Somebody wanted to know how freshly scraped ice can be, and 14 people responded. It's really common for them to ask a question and get answers from people all across the globe who are really into this. This group is hosted as a Facebook group. It started September 28th in 2008, and it currently has 724 members. The picture you're seeing is building the ice, not just grooming it, at the Denver Curling Club. This is a closed group, so the membership is moderated by an administrator. Any member can invite a new member, and then that member is then approved by the administrator. I assume this is just to keep from bots inviting thousands of millions of people, but it does seem to keep it very closed for just ice techs. There's an open forum as well as running discussion topics. Just as most ice techs are volunteers, this group is totally free and has no financial interest at all. This is really just people coming together to learn off of each other. First, a definition. This is from the Bates piece where he quoted Wegner, and it says, communities of practice are groups of people who share a concern or passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. Ice techs are out there every day, all season long. They share a real passion for the ice and the game. At my curling club, several of the ice techs have day jobs as NASA physicists, scientists, or in the field of math and technology. They love looking at things in a technical way and applying it to the game. So ice techs is a great outlet for them. Communities of practice are a powerful manifestation of informal learning. They generally evolve naturally to address commonly shared interests and problems. By their nature, they tend to exist outside formal educational organizations. This is from the Bates blog about communities of practice. So I am quite sure that there is nowhere in the world a master's degree in curling ice making. Well, maybe in Canada. They're really into curling. The community of ice techs is fairly strong. These are people who are incredibly dedicated to what they do. In addition to the Facebook group, they write articles for a curling magazine. Very experienced ice techs will hold a camp or a lecture and sometimes help train new ice techs by visiting their club. But there is no formal ice tech organization, and there is no educational system in place for training ice techs. Also from the Bates article, a large part of the lifelong learning market will become occupied by communities of practice and self-learning through collaborative learning, sharing of knowledge and experience, and crowdsourcing new ideas and development. Some of these things sound like formal learning, a lecture or an apprenticeship kind of idea, but the majority of the evolution in the field of curling ice making comes from places like the Facebook group. Someone will try something new, post about it. If it's awesome, within a few years, most clubs have adopted that new idea. Being a curling ice tech is not a professional career. There's probably only one or two full paid ice techs full-time, and you'll see them in the Olympics prepping Olympic ice and for major world championships. The majority of people do this in spare time. They're interested enough to learn and do this for free. This is a problem-solving group and sharing new information. That's the entire purpose of this. The post that's shown here was posted on July 10th. When I accessed it on July 17th, it already had 36 responses. I put some of them on the right. It's talking about how to seal the bottom of their sideboards when they're putting in new ice. When I made this presentation, my husband looked over my shoulder and said, "Wait, you didn't use my response?" So I apologize publicly for not using my husband's response in my presentation. But you can see that everyone is sharing different ideas of how they've done it at their club. The success of this group is in its active members. The goal of the group is to be able to support ice techs as they learn to support their curling clubs. It's incredibly successful at reaching both of those goals. These are the criteria for successful community practice according to the Bates article that we read. First is design for evolution. It's ensuring that the community can evolve and shift the focus to meet the interest of the participants. And I think that a Facebook group is a perfect platform for that. It allows people to post questions that they need answers to right now, as well as help with planning for the future, and it can change as people's needs change. Second was open a dialogue between the inside and outside perspectives. I don't know that there's a ton of things that are going to come from outside of the community practice, but there's certainly different schools of thought within this community, and a place like a Facebook group is an excellent way to tease out some of those between newcomers and people who have been doing this for years. Encourage and accept different levels of participation. There are people who just go on and read some of these posts. There are people who post regularly. There are people who are just going to go on there once to ask a question. So the platform allows for things like that. Develop both public and private community spaces. Most of this is a standard Facebook page where people can post and write comments. However, there is a discussion forum aspect to the Facebook group where it will group the comments into categories such as prepping the ice, building ice at the beginning of the season, different kinds of floors underneath the ice, and all of those are part of the community space. Focus on value. While nobody monitors the posts, it's kind of self-monitoring in that if somebody posts something that's ridiculous, it will obviously not get responses. But part of it is that you wouldn't join this group unless you had a genuine interest in curling ice making. I can't imagine somebody who was really into Taylor Swift would think they could talk about that on a curling ice making page. They would probably find a Taylor Swift group. Combine familiarity and excitement. I think this is really in the eye of the beholder. What sounds exciting to somebody outside the curling world may or may not sound exciting to curling ice techs who, when a new product gets released in terms of ice making, you can bet the discussions go on for days about the merits and the warrants of these products and who's tried them and who hasn't, and I think they're pretty excited about it. And at the same time, the familiarity of a Facebook page setup is familiar to most people. And the community. I would say this is an incredibly strong community, mostly because it's such a niche topic. It allows people to get questions and answers without having to travel or even know people personally. They can build these relationships and get answers to their questions from all over the world, from people that they've never met and yet possess expertise in this topic. So I hope that you can see that the IceTex Facebook group is an excellent example of a community of practice. It meets all the criteria, it's an exciting place, and it allows people who specialize in this to find a place to talk and share ideas and experiences with other people. And because I love talking about curling, here's just a couple of pictures of me curling. The upper left is curling on Lake Superior outside of Duluth, Minnesota. It was really cold. The upper right is my women's team. The lower left is my mixed team. After winning a tournament, we were pretty excited. And the lower right is me curling. I'm at the far end in action, so in Pennsylvania. I've had fun talking about curling and was glad to find a place to share something outside of my academic world in an academic setting.